All right, welcome back. This is continuing the full build of the ET48 E-Truggy from Tekno. And this is going to be bag F of that build, which is the rear hub and camber link assemblies. So we are going to jump right in. And so first thing first, just a reminder, I'm not building to the kit setup. And so some things will be slightly different than what the manual says, but let's get into it. So the first thing here, these hubs, I pre-installed the hub inserts for the height of the axle, and these ones, I'm going to put them in on this side now. And as what I can tell you is there's L, H, and M, and then there's an L plus and an H plus. And I am installing the number 2 position, which is L. So you can see on here, hopefully, and when you're installing the L is at the bottom and the arrow points up. If you're installing the H, then you would flip this and the H would be at the bottom with the arrow pointing up. And same with the L plus and H plus. So we're gonna stick those in. L at the bottom, arrow pointing up, which is position 2. So it's a lower height. So you can see there, L in the bottom, and it points up. So we got those in. Next thing here is we'll install these bearings. Flange bearing on the outside and the bigger bearing on the inside. Push that. Oh, you know what? Actually, this little piece goes in first. This points to the flanged bearing. Then we put this bearing in. And that's just kind of a spacer in there. Put the flanged bearing in here. This thing slides in. And then finally that bearing. So we got those all installed. Next thing here is we're going to install the CVs. And you take these little barrels and you put some of the kit supplied black grease. I like to put them on each side here. Just a little bit. And then you slide it in with the hole so you can see it pointed up, and I just wipe the excess grease off there. Do the same thing with this one. So a little bit on the barrel and slider. Wipe off the excess. All right. So then you just stick this assembly together in these longer pins, not the ones that have this little notch out of them, but these other thinner diameter, longer pins. You're going to stick in there like so. Do the same thing again. Stick it in there like so. And you'll notice that there's actually 3 sets of holes. It doesn't matter, you can choose any one of them. Those are in case you damage a set of holes, you can still use these axles. So then, next step here is you're gonna stick this axle in like so, And then you stick this hex where this hole lines up with the hole in the axle. I'm just going to lay this down for now. Just like that. Stick this one, make sure that pin doesn't find its way out of there. Stick that one in. Then we'll do the same with this. We'll lay it down like so. Once you get these hexes on, then you take this other pin that has a little notch, and you're going to point that notch out, because the screw is going to go in and sit in that from the inside here. So you're going to point that out like so. And then you're going to grab one of these larger screws. Always good. You can use the brake clean on these. These I find aren't as critical as the ones I mentioned before that are coming out of the outdrives of the gearbox. Just I use lots of thread lock on them. So we come in here and this goes in like so, and then I use a tire, buggy or truggy tire to hold that, and then I just wrench her down. And then finally just check that's everything feels good. So that one's good. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side here. Again, plenty of thread lock, never hurt on these. We stick that one in, grab a tire, make sure you get that hex into the hex in the wheel, and then crank it down. Okay, so we got both our axle assemblies together. So now the next step here is to put them on this arm assembly. I'm going to move these out of my way here. So we're going to stick it on this arm assembly next. The thing is, you want to put the inserts in here. And for this build, I'm using A. And you can see here that one side has one little notch, and that goes to the back. So make sure you get that notch lined up with the arm. And then the other side has two notches. And so you're going to line that up on the front side. Okay, then once we get those in, we can put this in. And for the build I'm doing, I'm putting 5 mils of spacers, which it comes with 3 thick spacers, which are 2 millimeters, and 2 thins. So to get 5 mils, it's 2 thicks, 2 thick ones, and a thin one. So I'm going to sandwich that thin one right in the middle. And then we feed this in like so. Okay. It looks like that all fits in pretty good. So then you put this nut on this side and a nut on this side, and you cinch all this down. And this is one time where it requires 2 nut drivers. Okay, so then you cinch this down using 2 nut drivers. I like to tighten these all the way, and then you want to be able to, you want this to be able to spin. And I can see this has a little bit of, it's machined such that there's a little bit of gap, and that's what you want. You don't want this to be able to spin freely so that your suspension works freely. So I'm going to go ahead and put this other side on, and then I'll come back. Okay, so then the final step on these outer hinge pins is Tekno gave you these set screws that they go out here on the bottom. And these set screws, they actually, you don't want to tight over, you just want to put them snug. Don't tighten them down super tight. And these set screws, they actually hold the inserts. And I probably actually should have maybe put these in before the hinge pin, but they go in here and they hold these inserts. Arm inserts from moving around. So again, we're just gonna, once we get those in, we're gonna make sure this thing still moves freely. Yeah, like I'm gonna actually just crack these just a little looser. Okay, so let me finish the other side and we will come back. All right, so the next step is doing the turnbuckles for the rear camber links. And I'm not going to go into the full details of how I do it, but I use a cordless drill, and essentially I'll hold the ball link. I'll hold this ball link in with this wrench like so, and I will get it started. Get it started here. And then I'll check to make sure it's straight, which I can already see this one's not quite straight. And so I'll just align it, like gently move it a little bit to get it straight. And then I'll move it in and out full length of these threads 2 or 3 times just to make sure the threads are free. And you do that for all of them, and you got to make sure you flip this turnbuckle, because the ones I'm on now are the reverse threads, and the ones on this little notch are forward threads, the normal threads. So you got to do 2 of each. And I just kind of lay them out on the table like this so I don't get them mixed up, and do that for all the links. And then when I finally put these links together, I'll put some black grease supplied with the kit on these threads to make them a little bit easier to turn when you use them. So that's the basics. I'll put a description in the video where you can go and watch this full procedure being done. So I'm going to do this and I will come back. All right, so we got these turnbuckles all completed. Just some things to note. Once you use the drill to get all these ends pre-threaded, then you can use, it's a 5mm turnbuckle wrench, and then I just put my driver in like that and thread this turnbuckle, and I get the threads, like I just show basically like one thread on each side to get them somewhat even. So we got those all built up, and the next step here is to put them on the car. The other thing, this little, right here, this little notch in the hex to turn it, you need to make sure you point those in the same direction. Tekno says to point them all left, but my AE cars, when you rotate this back, it tightens, and so I'm going to point all mine right. But just make sure you point them all the same direction. So you can see this one will go to the right, and this one will go to the right. And then I'm again not using the manual setup here, and so I already put these screws in for this inside one, and so I'm taking the innermost second lowest hole for this setup, and I'm taking the middle hole in the hub. Actually, I take it back. I did not do that right. I'm taking the middle row second to the bottom. So it would be 7B would be the settings if you look at the setup sheet. 7B. And I haven't, make sure you get these dog bones in the outdrives too before you screw this all together. But I haven't adjusted these rod ends to length either. You know, I'm not going to copy the manual setup, so I didn't do that. I like to do it when I get it on the car because it makes it easier just to crank this thing down and get it adjusted. And then, you know, these nuts, they go, there's like a little thing that captures them, so you don't even need a hex wrench on these outside ones. Sometimes they can be a little bit tricky to get in. You can put these on a wrench to do it if you need to, and just push it in like so. And so we'll take this one. There we go. Oh, I just pushed that out. Let's tighten this one down now. This one tightened. It all feels good. All right, but anyway, the only thing left to do on this is adjust these turnbuckles, and I'll probably put them close to what the manual says, and then the final adjustments I will do when I'm actually trying to set the camber for the setup. So I will do that. I don't think you guys need to see me do it, but the biggest thing when you're doing it is you use a set of calipers and you just measure in between these lengths here and make sure they're the same. So I hope you find this episode useful, and continue to stay tuned to see the entire build of the ET48, and like, share, and subscribe.